let's pivot to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Art Rooney II, the president of the team, did a conference call with fans recently, and there's a lot of confidence there as it relates to a 39-year-old quarterback named Ben Roethlisberger. Here's what Rooney had to say about him.
We wanted Ben back, and the key to it really was to be able to restructure his contract in a way that allowed us to keep Ben and really be able to sign some other players. And so Ben cooperated with that and was willing to make some changes in his contract, and that allowed us to keep him on the team for this year, which was always our goal. And look, I thought Ben had a very good year last year for somebody that was coming off arm surgery, and I think hopefully he'll have an even better year this year, with another year under his belt in terms of recovering from that arm surgery.
I'm not quite sure how the Steelers got to the point where they are so confident that Ben Roethlisberger is going to be even better this year. He's 39. There were knee issues last year that they tried to downplay. He never showed up on the injury report with knee problems. There were persistent and rampant reports he had knee problems, and maybe it's just arthritic and he's not getting any treatment, so there's no reason to disclose that he's got the knee issue. But he clearly isn't the guy he used to be, and he's going to be a year older. I just don't get this. And again, this is the time of year for confidence that borders on delusion. I just don't get it, Peter. I don't know whether they wanted to give the fans one last ride with Ben Roethlisberger because they didn't get it last year. I don't know whether they just want to delay the point where the Band-Aid comes off and they have to find another quarterback. But I still believe when they get to November or December, one or both sides is going to regret the last ride of Ben Roethlisberger.
I hate to say it, I agree with you on that, Mike, and I hate to see that because of the great career Roethlisberger has had. But, look, if Ben Roethlisberger really rededicates himself and comes back to training camp in great shape, or better shape than he was in last December, I'll change my thinking on this. But what bothered me down the stretch for the Pittsburgh Steelers is to see, look, first of all, he's a tree trunk of a quarterback anyway. But when you see what's going on in football today and how fast football has become, and you see Ben Roethlisberger's inability to get out of the way, and not exclusively, but because he's so heavy, or he was so heavy last year. And so that, to me, is part of this thing. He'd do much better if he was 20 pounds lighter and he came to camp in pristine condition. And look, he's not one of these guys who's going to do the Tom Brady thing in the offseason or do the Drew Brees thing. And I just think, really, and I said this at the time, at the end of the season, if I'm Art Rooney, if I'm Mike Tomlin, part of my conversation with Ben Roethlisberger at the end of the year is you got to come to camp in better shape. And you got to come to camp lighter. You need to be able to have better escapability than you did at the end of last year. And look, hey, Mike, you know what nobody's talking about in Pittsburgh? His biggest security blanket. You can talk about, Antonio Brown's gone, Le'Veon's gone. Hey, Maurkice Pouncey has been as close to a quarterback as any center has been in the NFL in the last decade. And now that security blanket is gone. Who knows what that offensive line is going to look like? And we're just assuming that the last three quarters or last two-thirds of last year, the running game was horrible. And because the running game was horrible, it's going to be fixed. The Steelers always have a great running game. Maybe it will be. But you're changing up an awful lot of that offense up front, including the guy who was Ben Roethlisberger's most trusted offensive teammate, Maurkice Pouncey.
And it creates conflict for the Steelers in the offseason, particularly in the draft. Are we drafting guys that will be developed into great players down the line, or are we trying to plug holes now for this all-in move to try to make Ben Roethlisberger like Jerome Bettis and walk off into the sunset with the Super Bowl championship. And frankly, Peter, I believe they decided to bring Ben back in part because they got enough distance from the season that they were able to go back and look at what went well, look at what didn't go well, and say, if we just do this, if we just do this, if we just do this, we can win the Super Bowl. And it got them to kind of get whipped up into a frenzy that they could pull this off. But they've got a lot of work, as you point out, that they have to do. Now, the defense is still very good, but who's the running back going to be? Who's the center going to be? Are they going to draft for guys who can be plugged right in and play now? Or are they going to be looking for the best available talent that they can develop over the long haul, maybe into 2022, 23, and beyond? They really are giving off the vibe of a team that is win now, win now, win now. And I suspect their draft is going to reflect that, even if they may be passing on guys who could become better contributors over the long haul.
Mike, the Steelers never have been one of those teams that says, let's take a step back this year, maybe next year as well, and we're going to come back as a championship contender in 2023. They never have been that way. I don't think under the Rooneys that they ever will be that way. And so that's why what happened doesn't surprise me at all. But it also tells you exactly what they think of Mason Rudolph and what they think, in a very limited exposure, what they think of Dwayne Haskins. You know, they're totally unsure that these guys can be the long-term guys. And, Mike, they are in no position to draft any of the top 5 quarterbacks this year. So, you know, it's to me, it's not remotely surprising they brought back Roethlisberger. It is in their DNA to think in March that if the following things go right, we have a chance to play in the Super Bowl this year. And that's what they think.
Art Rooney stating the obvious yesterday when he said we've got to be a lot better in running the ball. They were 32nd in the NFL. Now, there are different accounts and theories on whether or not Ben Roethlisberger was calling audibles too often or with RPO plays, choosing to pass when he should have maybe handed off. But something Jerome Bettis told Ed Bouchette of The Athletic during the season that still resonates with me. It just has to be a full offensive commitment to the run. It has to start in training camp. It has to continue all year. It's a mentality for your offensive line. It's firing off the ball and knocking guys on their butts and opening holes. So it is a combination of offensive line, having the running back who can get it done, and the quarterback who buys in to the point where he won't change the plays to pass plays, because it became just a litany of short pass, short pass, short pass, short pass for the Steelers last year. They've got to get back to the running game. That is their identity. Peter, I've said before this offseason, they need to find, not that it's easy to do, but there are impactful running backs available in the draft every year. They need a guy who can make a Franco Harris type of an impact. Back in 72, when as a rookie, he came in and he was the best running back, one of the best running backs in the NFL immediately. They need a guy that they can trust to come in and get it done right out of the gates as a rookie, because it's not like they have anyone like that on the roster.
Hey, look, they thought James Conner was going to be that guy, but he was always nicked up. And look, he had the ethos that they wanted. He had the physical brand of football that they wanted. But every year there were 2 or 3 things that kept him from being at his best. Right away when he got drafted, it was his hamstring. But so I agree totally with you, Mike. I think they have drafted a bunch of guys who were meh running backs. They just, you know, they've been, to me, much below average. They need a workhorse. They need to do what they need to find in the later rounds or in the middle rounds, because I wouldn't use a pick on a running back early. But they need to find a James Robinson or a Kareem Hunt playing type, third rounder after in this draft. They've got too many needs to fill early, in my opinion anyway, to take a running back in the first or second round.
You mentioned James Conner, too. He became a free agent 11 days ago, officially 9 days ago. This is the first time his name's been mentioned, as far as I know, in this discussion about what he failed to do in Pittsburgh. It's been crickets, and a lot of the running backs are doing short-term deals, 1 year, 2 year, but his name hasn't come up as even a guy who's on anyone's radar screen. So maybe he slinks back to the Steelers the way Juju Smith-Schuster did. Let me ask you that before we move on. How surprised were you that the dominoes fell in a way that brought Juju back to a place where he had made it clear his opinion was he wouldn't be back, and he was telling his teammates he wouldn't be back?
He just, 2021 messed with Juju Smith-Schuster's plans. And, what I found very telling about it, Mike, is that you look at Kenny Golladay, and maybe Kenny Golladay said to the Giants probably said, okay, look, we'd like to do a lot less money. Blah, blah, blah. We're going to give you some security, but we're going to be at $13 million a year on average or whatever it is. And so Kenny Golladay easily could have said to the Giants, hey, look, I'm going to go somewhere else and make 1 year 17 and then just go into free agency again next year. And that, to me, is exactly Juju Smith-Schuster, not the Jets, not anybody, had it in their mind that he's a $15 million, $16 million player over a number of years in a difficult salary cap era. Maybe 2 years ago when everybody was high on life and the cap's going up $10 million every year. Maybe 2 years ago, Juju Smith-Schuster could have gotten 4 years, $65 million. But he's not getting that in this environment because I believe, and this is just, look at this, the one stat up there. Okay, 97 catches last year, wonderful. 8.6 a catch. Okay, nobody really views him the way they view Kenny Golladay. Kenny Golladay is viewed as a downfield threat. Juju Smith-Schuster now has become, at least in the eyes of many people around the league, sort of a Larry Fitzgerald possession receiver. And so maybe he's not that, and maybe he's physically gifted enough to be, that deep downfield threat again. But you just haven't seen it in the Pittsburgh offense. They have chosen others to be that.
You mentioned 2 years ago that he would have gotten that kind of money, and the other reason that's accurate, 2 years ago we didn't know he wasn't capable of being a number one guy. And that's the reality. After Antonio Brown was traded, they tried to make him the number one guy. He doesn't have the downfield speed to draw double coverage and be the focal point of the passing attack. He is a number two, and as a number two, there's a limit on what he's ever going to make, pandemic or no pandemic, affecting the salary cap.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.